Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to my channel, Koki Creative. Today we have a speed build, and this is a tiny home, a starter home, and it's only base game. And since it's base game and a starter home, I had to use a lot of tricks in order to make it work out. First, I started out with the terrain tool, and I didn't do too much with the terrain tool. I just wanted this on a tiny hill. That way I can do some fun stuff with the landscaping and make my own porch out of landscaping, porch and deck. So I do the layout here. Usually I cut this part out of my video, but I just thought it would be nice to add it since I did build this in only 2 hours and I didn't edit out a lot of it. I start my layouts by creating the shapes of the rooms and then dedicating what those rooms are going to be. So if you see me just put a toilet in there, a bed, that's usually just a place marker. I normally change these things out, but because this is a starter home, I just put the cheapest of things in each one of the rooms and then change the swatches from there. I totally forgot to mention, this is for the 100 baby challenge. When you start the challenge out, you aren't supposed to use any money cheats, so that's one of the reasons why I built this one and the reason why there are so many beds in each room. There are 3 in the toddler, there are 4 in the teen kid room, and then in the matriarch's bedroom there is a bed with 3 bassinets, so it is ready for this challenge. And just because it's a starter home and a base game home doesn't mean it can't have any curb appeal, because one of my favorite things to do is make these houses look as best they can, because people believe that they can't look good, but I would just want to prove that you can do it. It's possible. You can have a cute looking base game starter home. To save money, I used the terrain tool to create this deck, and in the backyard I created a porch, but I wanted to make sure that your Sims could walk up this because I didn't want to spend money on stairs. So I did play test this as I was building it to make sure the Sims could walk up and down the hills. It does take a little extra time, but it's always worth it because the last thing you want to do is find out that your Sims can't walk up or down a hill after you already did all that landscaping, because you'll have to go back and change everything. Here I'm working on the roof, and I really like the way this turned out. One of my favorite things about roofing is that you can add so much to a house without adding to the cost. It didn't take me long to decide what color scheme I wanted for this house, since I found this door that's slightly periwinkle and I thought that would be a great exterior color for this house. And since the door frame was white, I decided to add white panels all around the house and then use a periwinkle siding to cover the rest of the house. Even though I never finished the 100 baby challenge, I've been thinking about doing it again now that the baby update is here, but I don't really know why I think that's a good idea, since with the new baby life stage, it's going to be even more difficult. And the reason why I stopped doing it was because it was so difficult. I think I only got up to 10 Sims, so, but you know, I feel like I have to give it a try since I have made this house, and I do want to make some more 100 baby houses in the future. And how else am I supposed to know what the player needs if I didn't even do the challenge myself? Now here I'm adding windows, and a lot of my favorite windows are actually base game windows, and the cheapest ones at that. Those are about 30 simoleons, which is super great because some of them take up 2 tiles, and I love natural lighting in my homes. I just feel like that adds so much more when you have really great lighting in a house. So here I'm making this makeshift deck. I use terrain paint to make the formal deck part, if you will, and then I surround the little hill with debug plants, so that way they're $0. I try to use a variety of them, but I try to keep with purple and white so that way it would mix well with the house, and I layer them on top of each other to make it look really lush. And then I use some of these purple debug plants as window wall planters, and they fit right up against the wall really nicely. There's like a lavender one, and then there's just a purple flower. They're both really pretty, and I always forget about these items. Then I use these debug walls and create a little fence with it. Again, $0, so it's not costing your sim anything, but it looks pretty nice. I like how it adds a little bit of privacy to this porch and makes it look a little bit more like a real porch. Then I'm going to add a little bit more landscaping around the outside. I find making a guide with terrain paint really helpful when doing landscaping. It helps me kind of understand where I want the plants to go. Sometimes if I don't have that, I just sort of randomly put stuff down. I usually use like a lighter dirt like this one, but depending on where I'm building it, I might use a darker dirt. I might use a lighter one. Really depends. And now I'm using, you guessed it, more debug plants. I use the same plants that I used on the inside of the fence to surround the house, making it look really lush. And I'm super jealous of my Sims. I really wish I could have a yard that looks like this. I don't trust myself to do this kind of landscaping in real life. I have unfortunately killed every houseplant that I've ever had. Even succulents, even cactus. Like, I do try, but I'm really bad at over and under watering. I just can't quite find that balance. My dream would be to have like this really overgrown, beautiful natural yard, or the opposite, like live on a sandy beach and not have to do any landscaping at all. It's kind of one or the other. But luckily I can always live vicariously through my Sims. Here I'm using debug wood pieces to create columns on the outside. I just wanted to give a little pop, little something different here, especially since I've said this 1,000 times before, it is a starter home and a base game home. So these wood debug pieces don't cost anything, and I even add it to the roof. Here I'm making a little fancy roof design. I'm using these pieces that I'm sizing up and down depending on what I need. I wasn't really sure what shape I was going to go for at first, so this X piece just sort of came out of nowhere. I didn't really have a plan or a vision for it, which is the case for most of my builds. Very rarely do I go into a build with either a reference photo or just an idea of what I want to do. Usually it's just I want to build a house and I want it to be this style, or I want to build this community lot and I want this to be the color. I just kind of go in with like a vague idea. Sometimes I end up demolishing the house and then rebuilding 2 to 3 times before I go, okay, this is what I want to build. But personally, that's what I find the most fun. I just like to see what happens and where the build takes me. And now we are on the inside, and I'm using a little bit of light purple, and I'm adding lights throughout the house so I can see. And in the kitchen here, I'm creating a no CC custom flooring by using Control F to make quarter tiles. I didn't really know what design I wanted to go for in here, so I ended up coming up with this one, and I do like the way it looks. But let me tell you about the kids' bedrooms. I like the way the toddler one came out. The color scheme was strong. It ended up looking good. But for the kids/teen room, I struggled. I wanted to have individuality in that room, but there was 4 Sims in a tiny room. So I had these 2 bunk beds, and I kept switching the swatches of all those bunk beds. I wanted it to be gender neutral, but still with a little pop of color. So you'll see when I get around to it. I try my best. I think I even changed the swatches a couple more times before uploading it to the gallery, so I have no idea what that bedroom looks like in my head. But I figured anyone who downloaded it, they can change the swatches of the bed and the flooring and the walls to suit their Sims. Since this, I have no idea who I'm building for. I'm just building for someone who wants to pop out a ton of babies. That's the point, 100 of them. So maybe if you download this, you won't care what the teen/kid bedroom looks like, or maybe you want to give it a little facelift. Please give it a facelift. I'm so sorry with how it turned out. I can't even look at it right now. But I can't be too upset because I did this build in one sitting in under 3 hours. And for the size of this build, I'm pretty happy about that. I also did a ton of custom furniture pieces in here. They are a little bit janky, but that feels more realistic with a starter home since you aren't going to have all the best furniture. Here I'm working on the kitchen. I went with neutral tones for the cabinets and the fridge. And it's also a pretty big kitchen. I ended up fitting a dining room in here as well. It only seats 4 to the table, but you know, do the Sims ever use the table? They don't. My Sims make it a mission to not sit at the dining room table and not do dishes in the kitchen sink. I don't know what's so appealing about the bathroom sink, but they just absolutely love it. And I know I'm not the only one because I see memes on the internet all day. Who knows? Maybe one day Sims will start doing the dishes in the kitchen, but you know, it might not happen. Now here I'm working on another custom piece. It's a TV stand made out of debug items. I could have worked a little bit longer on this to make it look like a real TV stand, but I didn't mind having it be just a simple little table. Maybe one day I'll build a couple furniture pieces out of debug and save it to my library, so next time this happens, I already have something made that looks a little bit better. But sometimes when I'm building, I'm just not in the mood to spend a ton of time on that build. I didn't even plan on building this. I just sat down at my computer one day and was like, kind of feel like building a starter home, and why not make it base game? So this wasn't even one that I had an intention of building. I have a long list of builds that I don't need to finish but would like to, and this one was not even on the list. I just went with it because I really enjoy procrastinating for some reason, especially when it comes to tiny houses. I feel like I can just like pop those out really fast, and a lot of the houses that are on my wish list to build are very big. I would like to do all the career builds. I just finished the hospital, by the way, and that took me 12 hours. So you can see why it would be more appealing to build something that takes about 2 hours versus something that takes 12 hours. But now we are here in the backyard, and I love how this turned out. It is such a cute little space, and since again, I don't have a ton of money, so I tried to get creative with it by using landscaping. I didn't really put a ton of places to sit out here, but I figured when your sim starts making money, this would be a great place to add chairs, maybe add kid items. But I did create these little open spaces for items to be placed. But for now, I just had them open. I figured just doing landscaping would look fine. One thing I figured people would probably want to add here is a grill, maybe some gardening. I did add an easel in the front because with the 100 Baby Challenge, you can't have a job and you have to make money on your own. So this also gives you some space for some of those money-making opportunities. I use the same plants as I use in the front yard just so it all can match. I wanted it to be really full, and I layered them on top of each other. I wanted to create almost like a fencing with this landscaping, and I think it really turned out. I did leave one little space open in the back so people could leave from the backyard and enter from the backyard, kind of like a little meandering path. And I use the same wooden debug objects here in the backyard too to create those columns all around the house, and also as a little column to hold up the roof piece. I'm finishing up the exterior, then we're moving right back into the interior, going into the kitchen, finishing that up with some debug items. And then in the Baron's bedroom, I make yet again another custom furniture piece, and this one's just as beautiful as the other ones. I'm using some of the same objects as I used before, those wooden planks right there. Those planks are so handy and I use them all the time. I do wish the Sims could just give us like basic shapes that we could create objects from, but you know what? I'll take these debug items. You might have thought we were done with those wood planks, but oh no, we are not. I am making custom shelves out of these planks, and they're pretty narrow, so I had to find items that would fit well with this. I scrolled for a long time. This is one of the only parts that I edited out of the video because of how much I was scrolling. I decided to turn this into a bookshelf by rotating books using Toolmod. First, I found the books that were free, which were only, I think, these two. I would have wanted to use other colors also, but you know, white and yellow are totally fine. So this bookshelf thing I'm doing is something that I just love to do. It takes a little extra work. There are a few extra steps because you can easily just use those base game book stack that everyone uses. I use all the time. But if you're looking for something that's a different color and something a little bit more customizable, sometimes you want a really long line of books. Sometimes you just want a really short line of books. This has been so handy. Unfortunately, you can only do this with Toolmod. So if you're on console or you just don't really like mods, you can't really do this, but it's, for me, worth the extra trouble. I finished up this bookshelf using hidden objects that you can unlock using bb.showhiddenobjects. These are craftable objects that your sim can make on the woodworking bench. Well, anyway, as I finish up this build, I just want to say thank you so much for watching today. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, let me know what you think. But anyway, I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.